Hi, I'm Matt, and this is Jared. And today we're going to demonstrate the Unyt accounting app. Unyt is software that helps communities and businesses create and run their own credit and payments systems. We'll be walking through an early test version today. Each Unyt accounting alliance runs a decentralized accounting and payments application that puts people and the work they do at the center. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll start to take a look at this app. This is our dashboard. We're mostly going to be focused on this page today. We're going to start out with a direct transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and send Jared some credits by going up here to send units or send credits. I'm going to go big. I'm going to send Jared 100. No, we'll do 150 units for Jared. I've already got Jared in my address book. If I didn't, I could go ahead and enter an agent key for the public, share the public key of whatever other agent or person I'm wanting to send to. But take a look up here. Right now I have a negative 10 ZF balance. I'm going to send him, and as soon as I hit send, I go down more than 150. I go 150 plus a 1% transaction fee, basically. So I see that in my transaction history. Hey, I've spent this money. My account has immediately been debited. Now, if I go ahead and stop sharing and I let Jared start sharing, on his screen, we see that he's been notified that he has some funds to collect, but he actually needs to accept them. And his device needs to validate that the transaction is legitimate before his balance will get updated, right? So right now he's got a balance of negative 195, and he's got the ability to accept that payment. Go ahead and accept that, Jay. Great. And immediately we see, okay, cool. His balance has been adjusted for negative 45. You're almost to broke, Jared.
Going for it.
Congratulations. Uh, all right. So something to note here. In other words, both parties have to agree to this transaction. The sender initiates, but the receiver must also approve. Unyt transactions aren't just a, hey, somebody can send something and force things into your wallet, into your account. No, no, no. It works differently than that. Unyt transactions involve each party exercising their agency, and as a result, they actually enable a different level of accountability. Each action taken is independently validated by peers in the network. And even one peer noticing that something is off will quickly trigger an immune system response to deal with the bad actor or actors. Sharing the signed evidence of the invalid action with other peers. Every other peer will be able to see that evidence and hold both the spender and any colluding receiver to account, basically by refusing to communicate with them anymore. They get ostracized from the community. Now, notice that when I sent Jared those credits, my account went into the negative and Jared's account went positive. It didn't quite make it into the positive, but it went positive. As a mutual credit system, the total balance in any Unyt accounting alliance application is always zero, meaning the total balance amongst all of the participants. The group is really what's happening there is anytime somebody spends, one party's going negative, somebody else is going in the positive, the same amount. So the total balance is always zero. The group is able to manage monetary supply by managing credit limits. Usually, brand new users who haven't done anything to establish credibility in that community yet would start with no credit limit, meaning they can receive credits, they can spend credits, but their account isn't allowed to go into the negative, right? They're not allowed to spend beyond zero. Now, someone else with a credit limit can spend into the negative up to their credit limit. Each community defines its own credit limit algorithms, whether those reference a history of useful contributions or having secured the credit line with an asset like blockchain tokens. Whatever the mechanism is, regardless of how they gain access to the credit line, when a participant spends into the negative, we can think of that as a loan from the rest of the community, but that happens to charge 0% interest. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. In addition to direct payments, the community can set up smart agreements to support even sophisticated business logic, like a cloud hosting marketplace. Once an agreement has been published, participants can interact with it by going to this Agreement Actions button. Let's look at a simple smart agreement example. Imagine a holochain application like Unyt that wants to enable anybody to check transaction histories from a web browser. In a blockchain context, this would be sort of the equivalent of a block explorer. We can call it a web gateway. We could use a service like Holo Hosting for that. Now, Jared has signed up for the web gateway service, and this is an agreement that Jared is using to request and pay for a web gateway for his app. We've got two other people, David and Joel, who each have a Holoport and opt to run a web gateway for Jared's app. The hosting network, Holo, that is coordinating that work submits proofs of service invoices on behalf of web gateway hosts. Now, normally this would be automated, but to demonstrate the process, I will manually add invoices for the web gateway work that David and Joel have performed. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the invoice gateway. I'm going to make it so that they're going to get paid. David's going to get paid 100. I'm going to grab a proof of service. This is basically saying things like the rate at which he's supposed to be getting paid, what he was getting paid for, hours, etc. Um, and submit, right? So David had provided some hosting. I've submitted a payment for that. We need to do the same thing for Joel. So let's go ahead and go back to that agreement, invoice gateway, another 100 for Joel, and we'll submit the proof for Joel as well. And we can see in our history, great, we've submitted two proof of service invoices as an invoice gateway to that agreement. Now, if I stop sharing and I let Jared start sharing, we can take a look at his view. So Jared has gotten notified that he has a payment to make, right? He's been benefiting from their work. It's time to pay the piper. Now, what we see here is that there's a payment invoice. We see that there's 200 units that have been invoiced, and the request is that he make a payment for that 200 credits. He can see who is going to get paid, or at least he can see their public keys, and he'll go ahead and pay those invoices. Now, if Jared had David and Joel in his address book, he would have seen their names, but those names are really just a local pet names thing. Like that was my name for that. It's not being published to everybody else. So Jared went and authorized the payment. We can see that he has made that payment. I'm going to be the executor, so I'll go ahead and share my screen. Me basically operating as a holo agent. I'm going to be the executor for this smart agreement, and I'm getting notified, since I'm the executor that was named in the agreement, that, hey, this thing is ready to be executed. I'll execute the agreement, so I'll go ahead and open it up. And I can see that there's 200 units that have been invoiced. There's 200 units that have been spent onto the agreement. I can see that Jared spent onto the agreement. I can see that the payments are going to go to these two receivers, and I will go ahead and execute that. Now, when I execute that agreement, the result gets saved in a record of that execution. Basically, it's recording how those inputs got transformed in accordance with the agreement's execution code into a particular set of outputs. We call that record a smart agreement verifiable execution doc, or saved. Saved is quite a bit easier to just roll off the tongue. Depending on the agreement, that saved could be processing payments for thousands of contributors simultaneously. It doesn't have to be just 2 or 20 or 200. It could be tons of them. This saved will make 100 credits available to David to accept and 100 credits available to Joel to accept. But of course, just like we did before, they're going to have to actually go ahead and accept those in order for them to be processed and added to their balance. Now, I'll go ahead and stop sharing for a minute. Lots of different groups will use Unyt to create their own accounting alliances, each with the agreements that foster the kind of activity that they're focused on. A community with several different decentralized infrastructure projects might set up agreements to support everything from cloud hosting to Wi-Fi access to weather observations. A community of clean energy related projects would set up a different alliance with another credit unit and agreements related to the different services involved in generating, transporting, and storing energy. Each community sets up their own white label version of Unyt with their own credit system to account for and foster the specific kinds of activity they are focused on. That includes naming the payment units they will use, as well as defining service units to help them measure, track, and get paid for useful work that different participants are doing in their community. Those might include megabytes of data stored, or joules of energy renewably produced, or any number of other useful services performed. Typically, the smart agreements will include pricing for particular kinds of services. For instance, storing 1,000 megabytes of data may be worth 100 units. In many of these communities, those processes of billing and authorizing payment are going to be automated. So it will largely be happening in the background once you've opted in to a particular agreement or service. When multiple projects come together to form a Unyt accounting alliance, things get even more interesting. In a DPIN alliance, for an example, credits earned providing web gateway support could be spent on Wi-Fi services or encrypted backups of your photos or VPN services, all with the benefits of high transaction volumes and low fees. If you're building a decentralized physical infrastructure network, let's talk. Unyt can reduce transaction fees by 90% or more while enabling new revenue streams, opening up new business models that make use of cost-effective parallel microtransactions, and even create new pathways for funding the operations and the growth of your project. Visit unyt.co or reach out directly. Let's build truly decentralized economies underpinned by real productive work. Thanks.
Thanks.